Sorry, we'll get started shortly. I'm just trying to send out a couple more updates. So, as many people can get in here that actually want to see it. Um, just a couple more. Give me about 2 more minutes and I should be ready. All right, one last thing. Get ready just for questions. Where's that at? Where is that art? Have so much stuff stored in my phones. You guys do not know how much it's like informational gold that I have stored in here. Sometimes it takes me forever to even get through it because I have so much stuff in here. Um, but I guess first and foremost, I'll start off by giving honor to the Heavenly Father Yahweh. Um, and we patiently wait for His Son, the Messiah's return. For those of you who are in the faith community, I'd like to say God bless you to wherever you are. To those who are in what we call the truth, I'd like to say shalom or shalom to you also. Um, and for those viewers out there who are secular and just enjoy the content for the informational value and the history which I try to bring out. I do have a couple videos planned coming up. Have one that's gonna go into all kind of areas, going into what is it, the Yemnaya. If you haven't heard of the Yemnaya, it's definitely something you should look into. But if you don't have the time to look into it, that's what I'm here for. So I will be going into some of that research on the Yemnaya, Anatolia, and the Hittite land, specifically the capital of Hattusha. Barely hear me. Hold on a second. Let me check my volume, see if I can kick it up a notch or two. Or actually, let me try getting my headphones up. worked. Damn, let's see. Shit, this fucking thing does not seem like they're on. Let's try that one. Again. How's my volume now? I see I got Prop in there. Hey, how you doing, Prop? I guess give me a 1 if you can hear me okay in the volume. Or if you hear me at all. If my lips are just moving, that is all you hear, let me know. Or if I don't hear anything, if I don't hear anything in the next couple of moments, I'll assume that you guys are all hearing me good. Yeah, I'm maxed out. Can't hear you very loudly. Still can hear you. So you can hear, but not very loudly. Let me try this. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna try this one more time. See if I can get this thing to act right. It's not trying to be my friend. Babe, how do you do headsets? How do you make the headsets work? Bluetooth. Oh, never mind. I think I might have found it. Let's see.
You see it?
I'm trying to see. Connect this sucker. Oh. Am I on? No, they're turned off. Hold on. Or did it connect to you?
No, it does have Bluetooth.
Huh?
It does have Bluetooth also.
I know. I'm trying to Bluetooth.
Well, go to your Bluetooth setting.
That's where I'm at. It's only coming up with yours.
No, here, let me take mine off.
Come on.
I took it off.
Yeah, it's only coming up with Elizabeth phone. Why is it not Bluetooth?
Is it only connecting with?
Is it not connecting to my headphones?
It should.
Let me see when my headphones aren't on.
Turn it off and then.
Come on. This thing is being a douchebag. Holy.
Excuse me?
It's on. Alright, I'm about to say fuck.
Is your screen off?
Yeah.
Let me see. Here, no, give me your iPhone. You're gonna control from there on to. They can't see nothing, right?
No.
It's looking for devices. Mm-hmm.
It's weird when I don't want it to pop up. It pops up on the damn screen all the time. Try back and hit something else to back out of it. Because I'm like living live right now.
Hmm?
Oh. Never mind.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, this volume's just gonna be shit right now. I don't know.
Why don't you use no microphone?
My microphone. All right, sound check again. Is that any better? Let me know. I guess right now this is the best we can do. It does not want to. Oh shit, wrong way. All right, a little bit better. And I can make sure to try to project my voice a little bit. That way you guys can hear me okay. This is Hebrew Apologetics. Of course, you guys know the title. I had the debate with which yes, prop keep it going. My girl came up with that nickname. So yes, hypothetical mantis is perfect because that's all he did was be hypothetical on damn near everything. Um, but my goal was I wanted to have a fruitful conversation. Oh, sorry, dropped my coffee. Uh, yeah, gonna be a little mess here, but I got my girl helping out, so don't mind that. We'll get back to the discussion of all the different ways which skeptical wanted to ask me on my beliefs. And you guys will see, I start getting frustrated with him at a certain point. And the reason why was he started asking me questions from almost the most asinine way to, determine what I believe. Because, yes, there are certain different aspects of the faith which we look into, which are not things which will determine your salvation or anything like that. But it's just interesting information to know overall to get better understanding, um, or to just get kind of understanding to questions which you've always had. Um, the problem which the problem with hypothetical, the thing which he couldn't get through his head was he's asking everything with such a presupposition that his questions can't lead him to fruitful answers. I mean, if you're asking somebody who is, let's say he's primary a dairy farmer in Wisconsin, and he knows about other animals in general, but he basically sticks to dairy cows. And you start asking about goat milk, it, he might be able to answer some of it, but you're kind of going outside of the purview of on what that person focuses on. And it almost seemed like that was, that was skeptical's whole approach. It was let me try to find. It was almost like somebody builds, you know, uh, I guess I'll go to a U-boat, for instance, and it's like somebody trying to double check to guarantee, is it completely watertight in every single hole? And I don't have a problem with that kind of examination. Um, that's what led to a lot of my questions in questioning faith in the first place, because I'm like, okay, you're telling me this, you're telling me that, give me actual answers. Um, I can take it if you say you don't have the answer. That's perfectly fine. I don't expect for anybody to have all the answers to any of this stuff, but give me somewhere to go. And just like Brian said, perfect. Leading questions. That was the problem. He had in his mind where he wanted to go to establish an argument, which he didn't know was going to be an argument or not. And it's like when I used to play defense, basketball wise. Um, you got a big guy who wants to put his body on you to try to get position. Just keep moving. Don't let him lay his body on you. Then it makes it harder for him to set up his attack. And that's the problem which Skeptical was running into. He keeps trying to back down, but there's no body for him to lean into for him to start his attack. And from the way he argues and the way he reasons, he has to find a point to start at to be able to start the back down. He don't have a fadeaway or a hook shot or something else. He only has this one move. And the reason why is because it's not of his intelligence. What it is this is a perfect example of somebody who's dealt with a lot of indoctrination. They've rejected this indoctrination over here, rejected this over here, reject that over there, and then they find this one thing, which is a whole doctrine of being skeptical of every fucking thing. Well, not everything. It's honestly, if you look at it, it's just being skeptical of faith. Because whenever I push the questions back to him on anything dealing with science, he had all kind of, I never thought about it that way, or no real answers to any of the pushback or questions which I asked him. And yet the logic which he was using to try to discredit me literally was discrediting his own argument. But he didn't have the intellectual honesty to be able to just say the fucking truth. Yes, and I know some people will feel like, well, is this a Bible thing? They hear cussing. I'll say cussing or profanity. Um, this isn't your normal, Sunday school. Uh, this is grandma with the big hats. This is not that. Um, it even says in the Bible, sometimes I may be rude in speech. It literally calls people a man walking around with the voice of an ass. It talks about the whore of Babylon. So if profanity is your big hang up, then you got bigger issues, I feel like, to deal with. Or maybe you're doing so damn good that you can afford to be whiny and snivelly about little things like that. But when you go into the real etymology and understanding what some of these actual words mean. A curse was a literal curse. For instance, one of the prophets in the Old Testament, one of the kids, a whole group of kids walked by. They mocked the prophet because of his bald head. And so, what that prophet does is he's like, you know what, you little bastards, I got something for you. So, that prophet cursed them. He wasn't saying, you stupid little bastards, and that's not what he did. He literally put a hex, a curse on them, and prayed to God. And God answered that prayer and killed those kids with two she bears. Those she bears came out and mauled 42 kids to death. So if you have this, oh well, God is all love and touchy feeling. He literally says he's a man of war. If you can't understand that, so a lot of these people come in with, well, if he's such a great God, then why would he do this? Well, you're the one who's determining what you are considering a great God is. You're trying to judge him on your standards when he's saying, I created you. You don't see the dilemma here. Now, I get it. If you're an atheist, I can get that you might have some of these kind of questions, which to me kind of seem a little cuckoo. But when you're dealing with somebody of the faith community, the very first thing you have to do is submit and humble yourself down and know that you really don't matter. God matters. God sets the table. If he decides you're the vessel to honor, you're the vessel to honor and be happy and be blessed and try to work to I guess somewhat deserve it, because you're not, none of us would really ever deserve our salvation the way I understand the Bible. I mean, all of us are, our salvation or our righteousness are filthy rags to God. So none of us could sit there and do enough to earn our way. That's the reason why when I used to hear the Jehovah's Witness, them explain their doctrine about 500,000 people are going to heaven. I'm like, okay, we have about 8 billion people, and I'm thinking, okay, going back a little bit as a kid, 7 billion people on the planet. How many people have lived since the beginning of time? And you're trying to tell me that he's going to only pick 500,000 of those people. Well, that also goes back to me having that when I had a different understanding of the Bible than what I have now. Now, anybody can come at me if you disagree with my understandings, but first try to at least ask the questions to understand what my understanding is to combat it, instead of, like Brian said, that Christianity supposition. Everybody thinks that thanks, babe. Everybody thinks that in any of these faiths that they're the same. None of these faiths are the same. Even when you deal with Hebrew Israelites, all the camps don't even think the same way. Um, and I listen to majority of the camps. I don't agree with everything they do, but I won't say that I necessarily think that for the most part they have the doctrine wrong. I can think that maybe they have order of some prophecy, maybe out of order, or maybe I could be wrong. But the point is, learn what each person, especially if you're having a discussion with the person, learn what the person you're talking to is, even learn where they're coming from first before dismissing it. Um, Something which I talked to Brian about. I shot him a message, and one of these times I want to get with him, off Discord, off all these other things, so that we can really get into some more touchy subjects. Because just like it says in the Bible, you're supposed to hear the matter all the way through. And if you never hear the matter all the way through and you're always debunking it, you have no clue if you're entirely correct, because you haven't listened to the evidence, and they might have some evidence which might stop you in your tracks if you stop yapping your damn mouths and let them get the damn evidence out there. A lot of videos which I saw, Brian, well, both Brian, Dubster Brian and Brian Aguilar, um, I watched a lot of that content. And I've done a lot of that reading. And one thing which a lot of people don't understand, and I was talking with my mom, because my mom was just in town recently, and I was having them ask. I said, "Mom, have I ever in my life had a hateful bone towards anybody just on a skin color, on some kind of difference that they had? Never. I've never been the type of person to ever judge anybody like that, and especially when people try to label me as a racist, it's especially hilarious. Being the fact of I was the type of kid where in high school, a lot of the black and brown girls weren't attracted to me, and so most of the girls who found me attractive, who I got along with, happened to be white girls. So throughout my dating life and experience, I've dated more white women than anything. Not saying I haven't dated multiple different races, which, my understanding and upbringing wasn't to judge a person on their skin color, but to try to judge them on, their morals and their ethics and, their viewpoint on life. And if they have a similar viewpoint, just like Malcolm X said, if you're trying to build in a direction where I'm trying to build and we're trying to go in the same direction, I don't care if we come from different vantage points, at the beginning, as long as we can come together at the end to make something, work. Yeah, let me go ahead and read these couple of comments out loud. It says, I never detected Skeptical having a counter idea to not even your specific points, but just the Bible in general or faith. Just trying to ask leading questions to doubt Christianity with this suppos. Yeah, I mean, I know I hit that last part, but I wanted to go in depth because it was a really good point that you brought up. Most of this, and I get it, a lot of the people, especially on the left, most of their vantage point is what they've probably grown up in, either going through, what I would say, either going through some kind of private school, whether it was Catholic school, um, you know, whatever different type of religion which they might have been brought up with. And I feel like Catholics is almost the worst. The reason why I'll say Catholics, and hear me out, is because Catholics don't really read the Bible. Most Catholics might have a Bible sitting right in the front of the house, maybe at a certain table, maybe birthdays and all these things happen. But as far as actually really going through and studying, like Second Timothy says, study to show thyself approved. You don't see a lot of that actual studying. So what it becomes is a lot of just listen to whatever your parish father has been saying. So that's one thing which, hold on one second. All right. Yes, I'm back. And then another thing which is never, because I remember when I first heard of the Apocrypha, and I spent so much time dealing with not reading it and spending more time. I spent more years skeptical of the Apocrypha than it took to actually read all of it. I mean, it took literally no time to read through the Apocrypha. So I advise people, if you have questions or doubts about it, just read the damn thing first, and then you can make up your reasoning. Um, the reason why I stand to it is because the information that's in the Apocrypha, you can find that same information in the Septuagint. So it's shown that it has been a part of the Bible, whether you're looking the old or the new. It has been a part of the Bible all of that time period. What happened is, under the time of Martin Luther, that's when it got taken out. And so that's the whole Protestant Reformation. I'm sure those who have done a little bit of studying know what I'm talking about. I know Dubster Brian definitely should know what I'm talking about. But under that time, that's when there became to be the biggest schism in the church. Now, keep in mind, most of the people that were in the church at the time would have been Roman Catholics. So any type of Christianity you think of, it branched from some form of Catholicism. That being said, a lot of the people did not actually speak Latin, which most of the services were done in Latin. So you have a population which doesn't speak Latin. They're going to have some difficulty understanding what the hell is actually going on. A lot of people assume that all Romans spoke Latin. That's not correct. Um, some of the wealthier definitely did. Some of the people who were more in control spoke Latin. But when you get to Rome, or the Roman, or I guess we'll say the Roman Papal States, not in the time of the Roman Empire. In the time of the Roman Papal States, where all the kings would go back to all of the different would go back to their local, I guess, parish fathers, who would relate up through the bishops and so far through their whole chain of command all the way back to the Pope, which was normally in the Vatican City, which occasionally the Pope would travel, go a bunch of different places. Anyway, with that going on, these states were very. You had a lot of people from North Africa. You had people from Asiatic areas. You had a different type of Europeans than just the Latins. You had more people, which would have been more, I guess, Nordic. So you had a variation, and then you had mixture. You had mixing going on that time period. So you would have had, a very non-homogeneous zone before this time period when the Papal States come into play. Um, and so what I'm saying is, many people would not have had an understanding of the Bible at the time when they started splitting apart. Hey, I got Josh in the room. Hey, Josh. Um, Brian, you guys play nice. But what happened is, when Martin Luther actually took those books out and started to come up. I don't want to say come up with his own doctrine, but he had his different understanding on the Bible and felt like he took 14 books out, but he literally he wanted to take out like 20 books of the Bible. So at that point, that's letting you know that even a lot of Europe did not have a good understanding of the Bible. And so that led on to the Bible being taught in various different ways, not very thorough in understanding. And I'll tell you, the Bible is one of the most complex reads if you really read it thoroughly. A lot of people read it with very basic eyes, and that's where I feel like a lot of the misunderstanding comes in. They look at prophecies and they'll say, well, this prophecy already ended. Well, not exactly. Some of the prophecies are two and three and fourfold. When in Deuteronomy, when it talks about the Israelites going into captivity, think about it. The captivities that are known of, that everybody throughout most, I guess we'll say, Abrahamic faiths can agree with, and that's going into whether we're talking about Judaism, whatever different form of Judaism, Orthodox, whatever, whether we're talking about Kabbalists, whether we're talking about people who stand on the Talmud, whether we're talking about Christians, whichever different denominations, if we're talking about Jehovah's Witnesses, they all agree that Deuteronomy 28, uh, when it talks about them going into captivity, symbolizes It can't symbolize the Egyptian captivity, of course, because they just came out of Egypt. For those who are not following, but it does go into the Babylonian captivity. It is talking about the Assyrian captivity. It is talking about the Persians and the Medes. It is talking about 70 AD and the Romans. And then I believe that it's also talking about unspecific, unwritten captivities that were to come after the prophets of those days, of the biblical days. Let's see. Let's see. Brian Aguilar is in. Says, let's see. I should introduce you to Amy Smith. She talks about this too, but she's a Catholic. Oh, yeah, I'm perfectly fine with speaking with anybody from any denomination. I guess I want to explain one understanding which I feel might be a different understanding than many Hebrew Israelites. I lean very heavily on the part when it talks about the wheats and the tares. And the wheats and the tares, there's multiple different ways of understanding it, but the biggest way I understand it is you are not going to have you can have a supposed phenotype, but you can't sit there and think every single one of this person is X or Z or Y. For instance, we know that numerous times in the Bible that Paul, who was an Israelite, was mistaken for being an Egyptian. So an Egyptian can be mistaken for an Israelite, and I believe many people can. And we start going into centuries and centuries and millenniums. There's going to be a lot of mixing going on. So I have a certain phenotype which I see for each of the major nations, but it does not mean that person, even let's pick out the wild man, which are considered wild men or Ishmaelites. Every person who might have the typical phenotype of an Ishmaelite, I can't necessarily say that they are all Ishmaelites. I can say that maybe a good portion, but some in there, some of those that you think are going to be Ishmaelites are possibly going to be what's the word? Elamites. They could be Elamites. They could be Israelites. They could be Edomites. They could be Moabites. They could be Ammonites. There are a bunch of different nations, and "ite" only means of or pertaining to this nation or pertaining to a nation. So anytime you throw an "ite" on it, so Elamite, that means the people of Elam. Israelites, the people of Israel, Edomites, the people of Edom, and so on and so forth. That's all that really means. So when you hear the Jebusites and the Canaanites and the Hivites and the Hittites and the Parasites and all that stuff like that, all it's just going into is different people groups, different nations that were involved in these different conflicts. The knucklehead, which I'm so happy that you all got joined in watching that live stream. Those who caught it live and those who caught it a little bit later, or those who just popped in and caught a couple little nuggets enough to say, this dude is not trying to have a fair or a balanced conversation. So I appreciate those who were there. I appreciate those who came in to this feedback because I knew some of you have dealt with hypothetical mantis. For those who don't know, that is his new nickname. My girl came up with it. Prop has held it down and it's kept that name going, and so we're going to keep it going for no longer. He will be no longer Skeptical Mantis. He will be Hypothetical Mantis. I don't know. Amy Josh says she's very arrogant. I don't really like arrogant types. For those who know me, even if I have a disagreement, I try to deal in humility and understand that maybe I might know something that this person that they might not know, and they might not be prepared to know it yet. So some information, we're not always ready for the information. And some people have a tacky way sometimes of putting it out there. So I always try to keep, I always try to deal the way I always have dealt, to always try to, treat others how I want them to be treated. But when it gets into this Bible, some of these understandings of stuff, I know that without saying names and pointing anybody out at this specific moment, there are people that are God's literal enemy. And when I know that he deals in nations, because if you look back to all the captivities, almost every single time that the Israelites were in captivity, the prophets were right there in captivity with them. So even though they were still righteous and had no problems, they still had to be judged for the sins of what their nation was doing. I mean, think about it. Moses was considered um, basically righteous in God's eyes, but still at the very last bit, he still ticked him off and didn't make it into the promised land. So, everything's not always clear cut. I also believe that it says that you got to persevere to the end. So, none of us have a get out of jail free card. None of us are sitting up there, got a reserved parking spot in heaven or hell. And then that also goes into I have a different understanding of heaven and hell. So when hypothetical is trying to nail me down on viewpoints of this and the sky, and so I'm like that stuff. A lot of it is irrelevant to what I believe because I still believe. Let's say if it is a spherical Earth or it is a flat Earth or it's some kind of dome or whatever, it's a cube, whatever it is. I still believe that a creator created it. I believe that by what we experience, I believe that without and that's something he tried to put on me that well, how many people can live in this society now and things like that, and I'm like, well, us as humans fuck this up. So how can you put that off on? Well, that was a design flaw from the creator. No, it's us fucking flaw. We're the ones who are flawed and keep fucking everything up. And if we didn't decide to do things in the most wasteful, selfish ways, everybody could live with, I feel, a strong degree of happiness overall, as I believe was the intention in the first place. Um, when I believe that it says that, salvation will come to Israel, I do believe uh, salvation will eventually come to all the nations. But like I said, there's an order of prophecy. A lot of Christians want to okay, boom, this is gonna happen, boom, that's gonna happen, boom. It's I don't see it happening that way. I see that there's a first initial salvation. Once those people are saved, there will be a paying back of for the people who have harmed Israel. They'll have to pay a judgment, and then after that, then everybody will live in harmony. It's kind of like if all of us, I see five, let's say, let's just go with five. The number's five here. All five of us go out and we go into some expensive store and I knock over some shit and I break it. You guys all get to go on and go home. I got to find some way to pay this. So if they call the cops on me and I got to do community service till I get it paid off, that's just kind of what it is. So you kind of got to go through that and everything can be cool. Let's see. Yeah, you can send her to my channel. And if I disagree on things that she's saying, or disagree with the way, you guys know I'm gonna be straight up with her. I want to ask Marcus, do you think Jewish supremacy exists? Um, that's a complicated question. I would say yes and no. The reason why I say yes and no because I don't believe it goes throughout every single Jewish person. No. Do I believe the ultra wealthy use use events throughout history that have happened to their people as a weapon? Yes. And do I feel people like Josh have to kind of get the flack for it? Yeah, I do agree with that. So as far as the Jewish supremacy, I don't feel that is equal to every person. Just like even with white supremacy, um, yes, a white person may be able to get a better credit loan here and there, but there are plenty of them who still live in really bad neighborhoods and stuff like that. And the same with Jewish people. So um, I like to be careful when I throw out stuff like that because I don't want to drag a whole bunch of people in who might be allies or might be people who are innocent in this in this exchange. What I do believe is, and this is not a popular viewpoint, but I do believe some of the people who were victims, especially throughout Jewish history, some of them I felt because they didn't want to play ball with certain other people, and some of that, I'm not saying all, but I do believe some of the harsh treatment and cruelty came upon because of some of their own people. Yeah, I didn't like the term the Jewish supremacy either. I feel like it's so much a better way to kind of try to splice these things and get there. But that's just the way, that's the way Brian decided to phrase it. Um, Says Zionist supremacy. There we go. Yeah, I definitely agree with the Zionist supremacy. I believe that the Zionists use, I mean, they use every single thing they can. Like for instance, the whole BDS legislation. I know, for instance, that Josh does not agree with the BDS legislation. And just recently, Abby Martin had to fight it in court. Um, yes, do I feel that Israel should be able to advocate for Israeli products as hard as they can? Yes, I do. But to for Americans to have to follow any kind of legislation on behalf of another government, um, I'm completely against that. I mean, I know I'm not as patriotic as I used to be from my military days, and kind of because I see things a little differently. But I don't believe in any other nation having sovereignty over American citizens to tell them anything. So there, I do agree with that. Josh says, "Well, the way Brian is phrasing is incorrect." Yes, I agree. Um, Jewish supremacy with me and Jewish because I'm Jewish, I have rights other people don't. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that every single person. For instance, if I walk into certain bad neighborhoods or whatever, just because my skin color, I might have a certain form of privilege. I mean, it all depends on what we're talking about and who we're applying it to. When I am voicing my critiques and complaints against the ultra elite, which I hate to put it this way, but a good amount happen to be of Jewish origin. They are normally operating in a very different lane than the rest of their countrymen, and that's that's a shame that it's that way, but a handful of people do have an outsized influence and they do wield it in very unfair ways. And I feel like it's going to, and the shitty thing about it is, it always happens with the people who don't even really have anything to do with it. That random guy who he grew up in Israel his whole life, never had any kind of controversies with anybody. The day he walks outside with with the Israeli flag because, say, his father is coming from the airport, that's the day when somebody comes outside and thinks he's a Zionist and kicks the shit out of him. And that's what I'm saying. Those kind of things, I really like to try to be careful with the way we use these terms and throw them around, because some of us might be able to navigate through it. Josh might be a good sport about it and be able to say, you guys, that's a little, offensive. Maybe can we use, and I'm fine with that. But the problem is, all it takes is for somebody who has a pre-wired hatred, and would want to use this as almost like some kind of unwritten permission to attack people on behalf of what other people have said. So I like to be very careful with that. I mean, it, for legal ramifications, one definitely that, but that's not my main purpose is so that we're not causing unnecessary strife and violence. So that's my main point. Brian says there are extreme Jews out there. Even, well, the president is an extreme. See, that's what I'm trying to go into. I don't. When I look at Bibi Netanyahu and when I look at Naftali Bennett, I don't even see Josh in that same. They're not in the same. They're not in the same spirit at all. They're not connected how I see it. But because of phraseology, it can be easy to get them lumped together. That's why I want us to be careful with the way we word things. Um, let's see, identifying them all that way. Exactly. That's why we have to be careful with what we say. Also, you got to remember that even not every Zionist I don't even look at as horrible, because you got to remember some of these people have just heard something their whole life, and it's the same thing with like here. Let's. I'll pick somebody who I feel comfortable picking on. Jehovah's Witnesses. Jehovah's Witnesses. Some of them have learned this stuff their whole entire life. So I got to be careful at my approach in trying to explain things to them, because I got to remember for them, this is all they know, this is what they believe. And when you start attacking what somebody knows and believes to their core that hard, you're always going to get a nasty reaction. And you got to understand it. If it was flipped on his head in an area where you're a little sensitive on, I mean, so just like put yourself in that same headspace when we try to have these conversations. Um, thank you, Josh. I'm trying. Yeah, and the Israeli flag doesn't represent Judaism; it represents Zionism. Yeah, it does not. Um, if you want something to actually represent Judaism, um, and it's not even the so-called star, because it's not a star from my understanding. But I would say anybody who wants to be proud of their Judaism, rock the I can't even think what it's called right now. Um, Goodness gracious, I'm drawing a brain fart. Josh, menorah. There's nothing wrong with rocking a menorah. I mean, I have one on order for myself. So, and then also, I feel like if you are gonna use the so-called Star of David, explaining to people and stop. Don't call it a Star of David for one. If you call it a Star of David, what that tells me is you're not astute in your own supposed history, because it's not a star. Stars are circular. That's and think in those time periods they wouldn't have had any kind of magnifying object to be able to see them as any other shape but a circle. Um, but if there's a question in there and anybody wants me to explain what that shape actually is, I will. Let's see. It won't even be the same thing to everyone, though. Sorry, just trying to catch up some of these comments. That's what is correct, and there is what is perceived, but perception becomes reality. Exactly, perception becomes reality. So I always want to try to be as clear as possible in trying to put these things out. Um, let's see. Josh says, Marcus, I hope you post this video. This is a great explanation of this. Yeah, and this is what I want. I want to be able to have allies come on and be able to talk and explain situations. Also, I watched this video. Abby Martin did a really good video, and it was an Israeli soldier, and he grew up very, very, very religious, very strong in the Torah, and so he felt massively conflicted with a lot of things. And what people don't realize is it's not like everybody who becomes IDF, it's not like it's their choice. That's one thing we have to factor in. They don't have the choice to just say, well, I'm not going to do it. And before in the past, even some of the Orthodox Jews were allowed to be able to exclude themselves from the military. But that changed. Hold on a second. Let me tilt this fan up. Oh, that's better. Start getting a little warm in here. Good coffee. Let's see. Are you wearing pants? It's not important, but no pants while streaming is dangerous. Well, I'm wearing basketball shorts. What is this? DePaul. DePaul University. For those who are DePaul fans, I'm not. I just have a pair of DePaul pants for some reason. Uh, you can see our comments are not in the same order. Yeah, they're. But I think we're. I think I'm understanding you for the most part. Let's see, Brian. Dancing Israelis celebrate when the Twin Tower. Sorry, when the Twin Towers. Would you consider them as Jews or Israelis? I would. Well, anybody who has a citizenship from Israel, I consider them Israelis. Um, I'm a little bit more careful of anybody who I just outright call Jews. I will say Jewish or Israeli, but unless I've actually, because my belief system, and it says it through the Bible, that you try the spirit by the spirit. And so I'm going to try your spirit. If you're a believer, if you're not a believer, then it even says that even your it says your circumcision can become uncircumcision. Now, can you physically circumcise yourself and then it come uncircumcised? No. But what that's saying is even if you are a bloodline descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because your spirit is not right, you cut yourself off from the nation of Israel. So at that point, you're still not a Jew. And then it gets complicated because a lot of people have only internalized that Judah, Benjamin, and Levi are the only tribes. I know a lot of rabbis who stand with the ideology that after the Assyrian captivity, that all of the northern kingdom came back and they just all mixed into Judah, which um, I completely do not buy any of that. That's nonsense. There would have been remnants who came back because even if you read in the Bible, in the well, it wouldn't be the Torah, but in the Tanakh, um, in that part, it literally talks about certain prophets which stayed behind in Assyria and Babylon. So the idea that all would have came back, and then it goes into parts when it starts recognizing the chief priests of Judah and the chief priests of Benjamin and Levi, that they all spoke up, but there was nobody from the house of Ephraim or Manasseh or Asher. You get what I'm saying? There was nobody from the other 10 tribes, or I guess 9.5 tribes, or 9 tribes. So could there have been remnants that came back? Yes, but the rest of the northern kingdom still would be dispersed. So that's where I kind of disagree with just kind of lumping everybody, even in the term of Jews. Granted, the southern kingdom was called Judea, and one of the tribes was Judah from the bloodline lineage of Judah. But to even in the Bible, I know in the New Testament that it does encompass everybody, Israel and Jews, and it makes it interchangeable. But I don't hold to that understanding or teaching. Um, let's see. Oh, I kind of want to skip a little bit. Um, oh, got choosy heretics in here. Cool. Says oh, let me click that over there. Hey, just can you do something? Sounds like something's physically in between you and the microphone. Yeah, I've been having really bad problems with the audio on this. I promise you guys I will have it worked out by my next live stream. My apologies, but I definitely will have it worked out. Um, let's see. Got Mona in the house. Yeah, yeah. Gonna go watch Lego Masters with my kiddo. All right, you gotta spend some time with the kids. Gotta have some fun. I just literally watched Space Jam with LeBron earlier today. I recommend it. It was fun. Um, let's see. Yo, Marcus has no idea I was listening to Yo Bro. I like Yo Bro. He's a good guy. So he has no context for me talking about Colonel Sanders. Nay, I don't know what's going on with Colonel Sanders. Um, Yeah, you guys lost me there. What did it say? Prop says, Dumpster Brian suggests you denounce the Talmud right here, right now. Yeah, I don't follow the Talmud. I can denounce the Talmud all day long. Um, I look at it like this. The reason, and I can especially denounce the Talmud because it contradicts with the Torah. So it's impossible for you to lean on the Talmud and the Torah at the same time when they contradict each other. So I don't, hold to the Talmud at all. Now, do I believe that you can get some historical understanding on some things in the Talmud? Oh, most definitely. But do I hold to it as holy text? Hell no. It's disavowed, not pronounced. 50. Yeah, I'm not gonna read that one, Brian. That one's just kind of we don't have to go into that. Well, skeptical really wasn't prop. He wasn't really bullying me. I wanted to have the debate because I hope that he would ask some really good questions to really let me explain and go into some things. But he never really gave me any questions where I could really go into anything. And also, he spent most of his time cutting me off as soon as I would find. I was like, okay, I can work with this question. I can try to explain this out. But every time I would try to get to that point of explaining it out, he would always try to interrupt and redirect. And so when you're dealing with a person who doesn't really want to hear what you have to say, but is just trying to find a way to prove you wrong, you can't really do anything with a person like that. Yeah, whether you're circumcised or not, you still want to avoid the ticks. You want to know actual historical fact, which a lot of people don't know. The reason why the Egyptians kept themselves shaved bald is because of all the ticks and fleas that came off of the Nile River. So if you see in the pictures why they look all super smooth, it's because they used to shave like crazy, and then they would like glue little beards on because a beard was still considered manly. So that's what they would do. Let's see. Where am I at to get caught up? Yes, there are 12. There was 12 separate tribes, exactly. A lot of people don't factor that in, or they don't even factor in that when they're talking about Israel, Israel was Jacob, which was an actual man, and the 12 tribes were his 12 children, his 12 sons, which created 12 different nations. Well, not really nations, but it will be the equivalent of you have one giant nation and you have like 12 colonies, like 12 states. That's more or less what it would have been like. Um, Granted, some people get a little tricky with it and get confused and say 13 because you have the tribe of Dan, which is kind of cut off for a while. And then it says in the end times that Dan will be so small that there won't be full 12,000. So they're still factored in the end, but it gets a little bit different because Dan's numbers are supposedly going to be very, very low. Um, which Dan, I want to talk to Josh about Dan later on. That goes into a theory I have. But let's see. LOL sardines and macaroni cheese. I can't eat sardines, so I hope you enjoy them. I try my best to keep the dietary, so can't have sardines. I don't know what Elf is talking about in there. It's cracking me up. But see, there are different interpretations of Zionism. Actually, there's not really. This is one thing which I have to dispel. There's really not two different forms of Zionism, or multiple forms. There are the people who believe that it's their land and there doesn't need to be any kind of negotiating or reasoning or any of that. That they should just be like, "This is our land, bitch," and just run with it. Some people feel like the only and actually that's not fair. I'll say there is like one more other small group of there's one other small group of Zionists. Although I would say 80% of Zionists are stem with this argument. It's either so do we kill them for the land or do we just use court and other ways to keep evicting them? And so that's kind of the argument you have between the two Zionist camps. Then you have one third Zionist camp, which those are the people that feel it should be a state. They actually do want to try to work it out to share the land, but they're so much in the minority that they I don't see the two-state solution actually having legs because of the other Zionists, the other two groups I mentioned before, kind of dominate the other what I would call the benign, I guess, Zionists or the passive Zionists, where they're not trying to force anybody out. They want to hold on to the land themselves. So I mean, I'm sympathetic with that third group, but they're a very very small percentage. Like I would name somebody like Jen Perlman would fall into that kind of category. She's concerned about like not having Jewish people in Israel, but she doesn't want to do all the forced evictions and pushing people out of the mosque and all that stuff. At least that's what I understood when I was talking to her a while back ago. Because when I first started getting on the Twitter, I had a lot of candidates reach out to me. Jennifer Perlman was actually one of the ones who reached out to me before a lot of people even knew who I was. Before when she was first getting going, but once she got going, you know how that is. Once they get bigger than you, a lot of times they forget about you. So I don't really care. It's not my thing. Lego Jordan is Batman. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but it sounds like fun. ICU says Marcus is a man. Thank you. You are so kind, so sweet, my friend. Um, oh my God! I've never seen Jordan or Lego. You got to see Lego Batman. Go check it out. It's a lot of fun. I know if you guys are like me, I watch a lot of very violent shit a lot of time, and sometimes you got to watch some of the stuff that it's kid friendly. It gives you a whole different other way to work your brain. Let's see. Dumpster Brian says, right, skeptical really got to your yes. Let me okay. Skeptical really got to your point of view on the Bible at all. Just leading questions to imply his doubt was right without admitting his position out loud. Yeah, he never got to anything that I actually even believe in. That's why I felt like I kind of needed to have I needed to have a feedback because I don't feel anybody actually even got to hear my point of view or what my beliefs are or anything to even push back against it. I mean, at least he would let me talk more. You know that old saying, give him enough rope to hang himself. So I know that sounded probably weird coming out from me, but I grew up around a bunch of country people, so some shit just sticks in your head. What about Ashkenazi, Brian? Ask your question specifically because I am not going to group Ashkenazi as a whole on behaviors or anything or even what happened, throughout history. I have some Jewish friends that I've spoke with where in Russia their family was poor and their family were got the shit end of the stick, and there was other Jewish people who in Russia who were part of big. I mean, were heavily were high up in the government, and so I can't sit there and group people together who even in today's days we see a difference between class. So I can't, so you got to be more specific with that question. I'll do my best to answer. I try not to run from any questions, but you got to just give me a little bit, just repackage it a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, I like Katie Halper too. I mean, she does really good work. So definitely a fan of Katie over there. Let's see. Just said violent overthrow is theoretically possible. Violent overthrow is theoretically possible, and I honestly think it. Let me stop there. I'll wait till I'm on Discord to say that. Let's see. Do you agree that Ashkenazi are Jewish? Some. I know this might be offensive to some people, but as a Hebrew Israelite, one of our core beliefs is that we are actually the people of the book. So I'm not gonna say all Ashkenazis as a whole are not the people of the book. When you say Jewish, yes, I consider them Jewish. Um, but I mean, because if you have the customs, you have the whether they have the bloodline or not, they have enough customs and traditions where that's. I mean, what else do we recognize them as Jewish? Or I wouldn't even know what to call them. I think it would almost what they call it dead naming with like somebody's trans and you call them by a different name. That would almost be like dead naming to call them Germans or Russians or just simply Ukrainians, especially if they didn't identify as any of those groups of people. You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, we're in the day and age if somebody was born as a male wants to call himself herself a female. Sorry, I'm a little older, come from a different time. Then out of respect, you don't necessarily even have to agree. Out of respect, you just try to give that respect. And you can have the conversation, discuss it out further, but that's where that's where things get a little bit different and slicey. Let's see. Prove to me that William Shakespeare and Sir Francis Bacon were not the same person. Anybody? I can't because I'm not for certain that they're not. Let's not forget the rise of the theater was predicted programming of Roman. Yeah, I mean, I know I know we disagree there, Josh. And I know why. And I don't hold it against anyone for their different beliefs. Just like I hope that you wouldn't hold it against me or look at me as wrong or evil or want to attack you or something. I'm not like the guys you're going to see in Brooklyn who are trying to attack you and believe that you know about some kind of conspiracy. And I'm not going that far. Do I believe that there are Zionists at the top that are guilty of that? Yes, that's a whole different conversation. Um, do you think Skeptical is an atheist because Marx was? I think he feels it is a part of Marxist identity. Yes, I think a lot of leftists feel like they have to be atheists because a lot of the thought leaders on the left are atheists or were atheists. So I believe that they almost feel that the political ideology is contrary to the Bible and to teachings of the Bible. Let's see. I'm open to talk about this Ashkenazi Jews or just as Jewish as you, man. And I'm willing to talk about it too. Um, but just know I didn't think for what 38 years of my life this is something I've never questioned at all. Never questioned Jewish people if they were Jewish or nothing. Never have. It went into about a year and a half worth of research that made me look at some things a little bit differently, and also reading the Bible because I would have to believe that the whole bulk of the population in Israel are in fact the actual biblical Israelites. I would have to not believe the Bible because or not believe in prophecy because uh, literally being in the land right now is going against prophecy. So that's why I would have hard times, I would have a hard time, being able to stick with this. My family is part Ashkenazi and part Sephardic. Now, Sephardic is a different story. Sephardic is a different story. So yeah, when we start getting into the Sephardic, that's different than the whole Ashkenazi question, because a lot of my research shows me that the Sephardic there's a much higher percentage that a lot more of Sephardic are definitely descendants of the people in the book, but I don't share that majority of Ashkenazi are. The current Zionism that we are seeing now is Roman in nature, and the name is properly termed by historians and is known as Jesuit Zionist conspiracy. Used to be easy to get hits on. Yeah, it used to be easy to find, but a lot of stuff is really, really hard to find now. Um, and here's one thing which the reason why I have some of those questions, which like here's something that I realize it's never answered. we all know that 70 AD, the Israelites were not in charge of Israel. Can anybody tell me in the chat who was in charge of Israel at during 70 AD? Or let's go what? Let's say, you know what? During the time of Christ up to 70 AD. Let's see who has the answer. And that's fine if you believe I'm inaccurate, as long as you don't believe I'm evil. That's what I don't want you to think any of this comes from a bad place or kind of ill will or negativity or anything. That's my most important thing. I I'm perfectly fine with you saying, well, my buddy Marcus, he's a little turned around, he's a little confused, and maybe I am wrong, and then maybe down the road it can be proven to me and everything's substantiated. But the biggest thing is I don't want you to think that I am an evil person or have any kind of mal or evil intent. Um, let's see, what did that say? Let's see. Do you believe real Gentiles have a chance at getting into heaven? Well, in my theory as a Hebrew Israelite, we believe that when it's talking about the Gentiles, it is talking about the lost sheep, and that might be some of the northern tribe which is displaced, and people who fell away from Jewry. Because if you look into Greek history, there were literal laws to keep Jews from calling themselves Jews, laws to keep them from doing sacrifice, not sacrifice, but circumcision, and a ton of things, keeping the Sabbath, a bunch of things. So you do that to a group of people over a couple hundred years, it's easy for them to forget who the hell they were. Look at what's happening here in America. Um, most so-called black and brown people have no clue who the hell they were 400 years ago. Shoot, some 200, 300 years ago have no clue. So to think that that they could have been Hellenized and completely forgot over a couple of centuries who the hell they were, yeah, that's very believable to me. Um, but the Gentiles part. I was saying before, I believe there's an order of prophecy. Under my understanding, many nations of who I believe who the Israelites are, they have not blessed them, like it says. It says if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. If you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. Well, I believe that they mostly curse the children of Israel. So I believe that there will be a certain recompense that'll have to be put upon those different Gentile nations. And then after that, there will be, I believe, salvation for all, and a certain degree of equality. I won't say that it's going to be, the way I understand it's not complete overall equality, because it's like you still have to come to the children of Israel to um, offer sacrifices, to learn the Bible, to learn the law, to learn all these things. So they still the children of Israel are still going to be the teachers over the Gentiles in the end. And I'm talking about in the millennial kingdom and after the millennial kingdom. Actually, I wouldn't say Trump's son-in-law is an Orthodox Jewish, because most Orthodox Jewish keep a lot of the Levitical laws, and he doesn't keep any, so I don't see how he could be Orthodox. Josh say that's a different conversation. Ashkenazi Jews are just a name from a group that settled around the Rhine River. Yes and no. I mean, the reason why I have some different understandings of it, because when you start looking into just migration patterns, when you start going into migration patterns of when people got into certain lands, when you start going into linguistics, and a lot of these different things like that, it shows that most Indo-European peoples or language all started arriving into Europe from the Pontic Steppes and from the North Caucasus Mountains around a certain time period. At this time period, there were already established societies sitting there. So even the idea of Ashkenaz, I don't even know if the people moving in that area would actually be the original Ashkenaz. So that's the reason I'm like, I don't. The Ashkenazi gets a little slippery for me. For many reasons. Let's I'm gonna have to rewind what you just said because I don't think I understand it. But this is misleading. And I don't want to be misleading. Any questions you have, Josh, please ask me, and I will try to answer as honestly and truthful as possible. The last thing I want to be is be like Skeptical's dumbass. Um, I don't care who's in charge of Israel. That's not what the Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews are, and that's my point in the whole getting back to the whole Zionism argument. Um, I hold this ideology on the leaders of Israel and what they're doing. I don't hold this on the people of Israel because even if all the people of Israel all of a sudden say, you know what, we're going to go and tell Naphtali Bennett it's not going down like that. He needs to stop doing this, stop doing that. Naphtali Bennett, I believe, is still going to do whatever the hell he wants to. And if he has to crack down on his own people to continue his goals in his head, I believe that's what he's going to do. Let's see. Ooh, how did I skip so far? I don't believe there are any true Israelites. This is purity and religion. This idea is evil. Well, I'm not saying. Well, this is where I try to preference my statements. That's the reason why I said going back into the wheats and the tares. It is going to be so much of a mixture that there are going to be people. Oh, I'm not taking it as attacking, Josh. I'm not at all. I enjoy this because it's these are tough conversations and it gets us further along if we can literally talk about this stuff. And that's the problem in this whole society. We can't talk about shit. Everybody is so damn sensitive that the moment you start talking about something, it turns into arguments and fights. And so even when we're on the other side, I want us to always be able to keep the utmost respect for each other. Um, let's see. Yeah, I don't believe in religion. I don't believe in religion, really. I believe in what the Bible says. I believe in the children of Israel. I mean, for all I know, you could be entirely right. You could be entirely the people of the book, and I'm not. Or we could both be the people of the book. Or we could both not be the people of the book. But I say I believe the message of the book and what's advocated and what's expected. And the reason why I believe that I am one of the children of Israel because when I go through the curses of Deuteronomy 27, Deuteronomy 28, and various other curses throughout the Bible, I can literally just check off. Yep, this happened to me. Yep, this happened to my ancestors. Yes, this happened to. And so when I can see so much of it and it starts getting so specific, it gets hard to say, well, I don't know if this fits me. And when I look at overall which groups of people fit these certain prophecies, the the so-called blacks, Native Americans, and Latinos tend to fit these prophecies, or the well, which were future prophecies. They tend to fit them more than anybody else, and so that's one aspect of why I believe. But a lot of archaeology also has made me believe what I believe. Also, um, archaeology and studying just linguistics. When you start noticing that certain people go into certain areas where um, all of a sudden the people where they replace they don't have that same language family. Those kind of things have to be all factored in. Are Khazarians Ashkenazis? Ugh. Hmm. Oh boy. I will put it this way. Um. There is evidence to definitely suggest it. Although I'm not going to make a firm claim for a fact, but there is a lot of evidence which could lead to that. I'm not saying, and even if it was to a degree of Ashkenazis, I couldn't be for certain to say if it or what percentage that would be. If it's half, it's a small percentage. If it's all, I mean, so I don't feel that I could make that assessment, but I do believe that there's a lot of stuff which it kind of weirdly kind of fits. Um, but like I said, you do have that mixture of Sephardic and other things. So when it comes to Sephardic, I lean a lot more towards the fact of Sephardic being definitely more. From all the things that I've seen, it seems that I don't see as many holes, I guess, in the theory that Sephardics might that they match the people of the book. It's just the Ashkenazi area. I can't be certain of the totality and numbers and stuff. It just gets a little shaky for me because history gets weird in that part of the world for some reason. When we're talking about that whole Germany, Russia, Poland, Ukraine, Pontic Steppes, Turkey, all that gets really weird over there. So, and it gets really complicated, and you have a lot of different professors and historians that have a different viewpoints on different things. So, and then some of this stuff it goes back further enough where all you can do is base certain theory models. So you don't so to step out on a ledge and make something as an affirmative yes, I don't feel that comfortable, but maybe other people do. Um, let's see. I don't guess everything there. Oh, let me see that. Oh, what was that? Yeah, I think I missed something. Is it true the Rothschilds created Israel? I thought that was okay. This is where we're going into the Zionist stuff again. So my apologies to you, Josh. Theodore Herzl did put together a lot of the early foundations for Zionism. Um, did he exactly know which location where it was going to be or anything? No, but he was one of the people who, one of the early, one of the early Jewish people who really believed in establishing a homeland back in Israel. So yes, that was Theodore Herzl's approach. I wouldn't say the Rothschilds created it because Israel is an ancient nation, so it always existed. Um, but if you're talking about going in the state of Israel, was it Winston Churchill um, gave over with the Balfour Declaration? He basically a handwritten letter to the Rothschilds so that they could, establish the state of Israel. So and then that got involved with a lot of different Zionists. So that goes into a whole can of wax. Um, let's see. I like to talk with you about this sometime. Yeah, I would love to talk to you about it because from your spirit, it tells me a lot of good things. So I told you I believe in the weeds and the tares and a lot of stuff. So we're not going to be able to just automatically just look at a certain phenotype and say this is X or Y. Now you might be able to say I believe that this phenotype it would be the model phenotype for this nation. And just like we know, no matter which nation of people, there's always going to be a bunch of different mixtures and people looking a little bit different. So, I mean, just like you have in the Upper Caucasus area, where you have uh, Russian people where they have kind of almond-shaped eyes, and then you'll have Asiatic people who have more round-shaped eyes. All of these different things have to be factored in, especially when people are living on borders of certain regions. And then you got to also figure out what time periods uh, were was a certain family or people in certain regions to figure certain things out. So you just can't. I don't feel it's fair or being very scholarly to just make snapshots and whole overall estimates. But you can kind of go with the overall phenotype um, to a degree. But I would not hold that to every single person that walks up to you. yes, you take this stuff seriously. I take this extremely seriously. So, I mean, I, in fact, what I will do is just DM me on the Discord, and then I'll shoot you my number, Josh, and that way you can call me up anytime. And well, in all honesty, anybody in here, especially if you're on the Discord, um, uh, shoot me a DM. I'll give you my number. Brian knows. I've gave Brian my number. Talking about Aguilar. I gave Brian Aguilar my number and said, "Hey, go on ahead. If you got questions, call me, and I'll try to answer the best I can." Um, I can't help what people take from my answers and how they, internalize them, but I try to give the answers the best I can. Let's see. My family has been Jewish for generations, as far as I know. They were all living in parts of the Middle East, but I also had family in Europe. Well, that's what I'm saying. I can't. I mean, for instance, I believe that a good chunk of the Romans were possibly Edom, just like certain rabbis believe that they were Edomites. But, but, the little asterisk there, you did have Rome was not a homogeneous place, so you had emperors literally from North Africa, from Arabia. I can't remember one of the emperors' name literally was like something the Arab. So it's letting you know that it was not completely homogenous. So it gets tricky with figuring out who each person was further enough back. And I always try and if a person has more information that I can look into, then we can kind of try to build from there and try to figure out more things if they have questions that I might be able to answer, or they might be able to settle questions which I might have. I'm always open to that. I always try to stay humble, and never try to think that I have all the answers or am 150% correct. Um, I suppose the best angle to find out about Jesuit Zionist conspiracy is to dive into people's writing about Albert Pike Manifesto. Yeah, Albert Pike scares the crap out of me. I've read Albert Pike's manifesto, and it's creepy how somebody could have wrote something in, I think, like 1870s, and it lined up to stuff which happened 50, 60 years later. That's pretty eerie to me. That's part of what made me start believing, yes, there's something to this whole, Illuminati conspiracy stuff. No, I definitely believe there are still children in the book roaming around to this day, because it said that God would not cast out his people. So the Israelites are still around, definitely. Um, you say you think we're all God's people. The reason why I don't believe that is because um, there is two nations that I know of that said that they will not get entrance into the kingdom of heaven at all, whichever those nations are. And then there's one nation which it says is going to be completely obliterated in the Bible. So I can't believe that it's just for all when it's already telling me that at least like 4 or 5 nations are kind of doomed. So that's the reason why I can't just be like, well, all people. No, I don't. I mean, I believe that he's going to bless the. I believe he's coming for his people, but the people who bless them, they will be blessed also. The people who curse them, they will be cursed also. So I guess going back to what Dubster Brian was asking earlier, that's a way also where I believe that there will be some form of salvation, because the people who treat the Israelites correctly, they will be able to cleave in a sense, and that'll be a form of salvation that they'll have. Let's see. Boom, 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 boom. Rothschilds are not Judaism. That is entirely correct. Um, and I like for people to try to separate them. Rothschilds is firmly under Roman. Well, honestly, it could be. I don't even know when it gets to that level, because these people who are involved in a lot of these things, they're just. It's kind of like some of them, to a degree, are just generals in a different field. It's kind of like in the military, you're going to have somebody who's going to be over supply, and somebody who's over weapons, and somebody who's over engineering, and somebody who's over damage control. And so, you get what I'm saying? So I look at it to that degree. Some of those Jesuits have power at a certain level, and then there are other powerful families who are doing a lot of this, crap. It's not all. And when you get into those families, they're not all Jewish like everybody likes to throw in. Um, a couple of them are, but not all. Um, a couple are Irish, and then not even people completely forget about the Onassis, the Sod family, the Lees. So we got to factor in all the people who are involved in some of this stuff and not try to put most of the burden on an easy target, in a sense. Um, let's see. Do, 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 do. Yeah, and I don't even believe a super God necessarily, but more encompassing energy. Well, I mean, I'm hoping that when we have our conversation, I can convince you. I'm hoping because part of me hopes that you are part of me hopes that you are a brother, actual brother, and that we will be able to have happiness in the kingdom together. So that's what I'm shooting for. I try to look at as everybody as if you're an Israelite, and I can't look at, okay, well, this person has the phenotype of what I imagine a Moabite would be, so I'm going to treat them like a Moabite. I can't do that. I gotta treat you like you're Israelite until you've given me all the signs that you can't be. And so that's why I try to always have that same brotherly love and respect, because I don't want to be cursing a fellow Israelite. I want to make sure that I'm talking to my people with respect and love. Dubster Brian says, if I have one single Israelite ancestors, I am one of the chosen people. It actually comes from, and this is where we have a disagreement with a lot of the people in the Jewish community or Judaism. It comes from your father's line, so it's a patrilineage line. So that's the reason why I say, even if you have certain phenotypes, you can't be entirely certain because it comes from patrilineage line, per the Bible. That's in Numbers, in the actual Torah where that goes into it. Josh says, Marcus Ali, Alexander, me, and Jack Sith are all Jewish. We would love to come on and talk about these things or talk about them in private. Either way, exactly. I want you all. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, Josh. I see the tenor that's going on out there, and I can understand how this could be a really freaking uncomfortable time. And when what I've seen of your work, what I've seen of Ali's work, you guys have always tried to put your best foot forward. You guys have, even in uncomfortable situations, because don't get me wrong, I've watched Slow News and I can see sometimes she looks extremely uncomfortable. And I know it can be hard to have to call out your own people. I do it to the black community all the time. I do it to the Latino community. I do it to the indigenous community also. So I know it's not comfortable. I know it's not comfortable. So I do commend her for having the courage to be able to do that. I know that some of her people are calling her traitors and all kind of stuff behind her back, and probably that happens to you also. So I can understand where you can feel like you're put on an island because you're being attacked from all these different areas. So I don't ever want to be one of those people. I want to be an outlet. If it needs to be private conversation, we can always have private conversation. If you want to do it on so it can be more edifying to other people, so they can possibly learn. We can even do something where we hold all the questions to the end or whatever. But I just want to be able to lend that open outlet and know that there's no tension on this side. I know how a lot of Hebrew Israelites can be towards people in the Jewish community, and so I don't ever want to go that direction because for all I know, maybe I might be right 99% of the time, but what if it's that one person that walks up and I'm wrong and I treat them like the son of Satan? That's a judgment that comes back on me. So I have to always keep those kind of things in mind. Prop says my uncle's aunt My uncle's auntie was Jewish. She loved gold coins and made Hollywood movies. And how about Dumpster Brian was a, yeah, I'm not gonna call him that. I also think history is very messy. It's very messy, and so um, we gotta have enough courage to look at it all, even the stuff which is horrendous, and pick through it and try to find where the actual truth is and where the lies are at. Because a lot of times, it the truth is always sitting somewhere in between what we often hear. So we got to be open to the fact of everything that we heard is not always entirely 100% correct. Um, an inducted Jesuit is no longer a Jew. I hope that's simple. Well, but they still would be if they're an actual bloodline Jew, then they're still a Jew, you know, by blood. They might not be in the spirit, and that's where they would be cut off and looked at as a Gentile again. Um, that that falling away. Jesuit is satanic. There's no other way to. I mean I complete Jesuits are some of the, especially if you do a lot of studying into occultism and secret handshakes and stuff, dealing with the Jesuit orders and a lot of these popes and bishops, you're going to see a lot of weird stuff. Another thing, which a lot of people they put this mostly in the Jewish community, and if you want to attack somebody, these are the people you need to attack. Christian evangelicals, because for all the settlement stuff that goes on, most of that money, believe it or not, is coming from white evangelicals sending money over to people like Naphtali Bennett to do this. So get more on those people's head instead of looking for whichever Ashkenazi person around you to kind of give them hell about it. It's not like they could literally call each person up and every Jewish person knows every Jewish person. Um, let's see. Yes, BB is a Jesuit. Mason in the nature. Well, the thing, and this is what I said on my show the other day. Let me finish reading the comment. Let me pull it up. Yes, BB is a Jesuit. Mason is the nature of his corruption and loyalty to Rome. Mossad, like every other major intelligence agency around the world, reports to the Holy See. Oh, you know about the Holy See? Okay, founded by the Knights of Malta. Believe it or not, I've been to Malta. It's beautiful there. Beautiful. I was stationed in Sicily for 2 years, so spent a lot of time in Italy and bouncing around parts of Europe. Um, let's see. Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, like I tried to clarify before, um, I don't look at officials who are in positions in the state of Israel as the same as the people, especially not stateside, because I believe that sometimes when you're able to step back from something, you're able to see it a little bit better. And sometimes when you're too involved and it's too personal, it's hard to step back and make a rational assessment of things. For instance, when I spent a couple of years outside of the country and I would come back, I literally would get culture shock coming back to the United States because some things would be just so different and hard for me to understand. So I completely understand all those things. Oh, let's see. It's the same old Roman occupation of the Holy Land, save our ships. But it is. It really is. And the reason why I asked that question, does anybody know who was in charge of Rome at the time? Well, a lot of people would think because it's Israel that the Israelites were in charge. The Israelites were not in charge. Herod was in charge. Herod was an Edomite. That's who was in charge of Israel for that last 30 years. And it's funny, you hear about the destruction of 70 AD, you hear about the Jews, some of them being displaced, it's said into the wilderness. I believe that would have been some parts of Africa, some parts of Arabia, and that would have been some parts into the Pontic steppes in the Turkish area, going into where Josh was saying earlier, where his family has some roots. So you see what I'm saying, where I can see ties because I've done enough studying the history. If people can kind of give me more information, and we can start getting there, and I can actually start really explaining some stuff out. Yeah, go ahead, Brian. Just hit me up on Twitter then, and I'll give you my number again. Dubster Brian says 2 to the 62nd power is how we count back generations. That number is 18 quintillion. So it took a mix of 18 quintillion in the generation of 70 AD, over 200 million on Earth at that time estimate. Yeah, that's why I say it is too complex to think. You can look at somebody today and just be like, yes, you are. No, you're not. Yes, you. No. That's insane. That's the reason why I'm like, I don't know who actually is or is not. I can't. So when somebody tries to say, well, I know him of this tribe specifically, yeah, I get a little itchy about that because it's kind of hard to figure that out. Did somebody fart? Not me. Let's see. What about the Bolsheviks? Well, the Bolsheviks that gets into a whole nother angle. We'll go into Bolsheviks when I go into talking about powerful leaders who who influence certain regions, and which I'm gonna go into that later on. Don't worry, I will. Christian evangelicals are wrong in so many ways. Exactly, they are so wrong, and they're the reason. I honestly believe evangelicals are why most people do not believe in the damn Bible, because they, for one, pick and choose in the Bible what they believe in. Two, they pick and choose what they want to use in the Bible against other people. And it's like this, you all know the verse. Even if you're not a religious person, you all know, "Ye who is without sin cast the first stone." I mean, there's other ones in there. It says, make sure you take the eye beam out first before you try to take the beam out of somebody else's eye. So it's all about work on you first. And then when you get to the point where you're good, then you start rebuking other people. But in that meantime, all you're supposed to do is to try to teach, try to reach out, and try to work on you. Once you got you good, then yeah, knock yourself out. If you feel you're on Christ level, or Peter, or Paul, or one of the prophets or disciples, and you want to start, cutting people with the Bible, and you're wrong, okay, do that. But make sure your shit's tight first, because one thing which I always had to keep in mind was said, whichever judgment and how you judge other people, that judgment will be exacted upon you. So when it comes your judgment day, do you want to be sitting there, and what stops you from having paradise is because you are asshole to people on earth? I mean, do you really want to, let's see, what was that? Choosy Heretic has another one. Bingo Marcus, there was a poll during the Trump administration revealed a higher percentage of Jewish Americans thought Trump was doing too much for Israel compared to American Christians responding. And that's something that people don't understand. And here's the thing about it. This is why if I was Ashkenazi or if I was Sephardic, I would hate evangelicals, because they're not doing it for good reasons. Their reasoning and their thinking, because you got to remember, I used to be a Christian. I used to believe what the hell they believed. They believe the faster Israel can get this land, the faster the Messiah will come and destroy most of them, or really all of them, because they honestly believe they're going to be spiritual Israel, and they're going to supplant the natural branch. Which, going to the natural branch, we won't go into that because that gets complicated for a lot of people. They don't understand the whole grafting analogy. But they really just believe that they're going to take their place, which in actuality, even though they're sending all that money, I guess this would be the one time where I guess I could perfectly use it that way. That is actual complete anti-Semitism right there. To say that you are going to literally take God's blessing from his chosen people. I don't think you get any more anti-Semitic than that. Whether you are prefacing that thinking towards the people who the world knows as Jews now, or whether it's another group of people, to think that you're just going to supplant them, and God has cast away his people. Well, like I said before, if I find out, oh, no, the people in Israel, they are exactly 100% the people of the book, it doesn't change my understanding of what the book says. It doesn't change that. So I always try to keep all of these things in mind.
said, "LOL, Marcus, did you go to Malta Underworld?" Actually, I didn't. I just spent a lot of time drinking. I mean, I was a young sailor in those days, so you know what sailors do: drink and chase women. um, was Karl Marx Jewish? Brian, you know the answer to that. Yes, Karl Marx was Jewish. And and the kind of one of the funny things to me is people hit Karl Marx as being like a self-hating Jew or anti-Semitic. Uh, it frustrates me when I hear that because what I see is he was trying to he. I look at okay. A better way to phrase this, I guess, if somebody like Ali or Josh, or Sith, if they were able to, get into that position on the level where, say, a Karl Marx was, where he has that much power and influence in politics for his nation. What he saw the ugly underbelly of the Zionists, the nasty stuff, the stuff which Brian is kind of alluding to, and he saw a lot of these things. He saw the raw, naked ambitions of what like Netanyahu and a lot of these Gantz and these hard right wingers. He saw that, and that's what he's criticizing. And so their pushback was to, oh no, he's just a self-hating Jew and he's demonizing us, and broad brushing all of the Jewish people in, so that now it's Marx against the Jewish people. That's just another way which Zionists find a way to flip the whole argument on its head. And even though those Zionists may be the bad guys, that's how they make you become the bad guy. Um, let's see. Man, it was a good chat. Wow, I didn't realize we've almost gone 2 hours. Well, probably because I was dicking around trying to get the audio straight. My apologies that, if it's not the greatest. I have a speaker. I just gotta figure out how to hook my speaker up to my tablet. Because I normally put it on my laptop. Um, but yeah, and then I mean, if we start going down the who's Jewish throughout history, um, that I just I don't like that game. Also because of the fact of the way European history was. European history kind of excluded out everybody. They acted as if nothing was basically going on in Asia for the most part. They act as if nothing was going on in Africa. They act as if nothing was really going on in the Levant or in those areas. So um, you're able to focus more on European history. And so if you have a small group of people and some of them get to high levels of power, it's going to stand out and be a little bit more magnified, I feel. Um, Also, when you get into certain countries like Russia, where there was a much higher population, um, you're going to have more numbers of Jewish people rising into levels of power. And so that just makes sense. Uh, I don't think a lot of, oh, what does it say? I would like to talk about it on here, but I'll just message you on the, I'll let you, actually, what I'm going to do, Brian, I'll set it up and I'll just interview you. Honestly, what some of the things which you've reviewed, what leads you to believe certain things, and in all honesty, I'm perfectly fine with even just kind of moderating and have somebody else kind of interview you back and forth, and I just kind of sit out because I feel like I've kind of laid out my point of view. There's other people who might have a little bit more harder stances on some other things, and so for people who have a more hardened stance on it, I tend to let them take that stance instead of trying to play the devil's advocate role, um, because I feel it can be easy to conflate the devil's advocate with my actual stances on things, and I don't want any of that to ever be kind of clouded. So yeah, I could bring you on here, Brian, and definitely have somebody question you back and forth, and see how much is see which things that may be able to be answered. Sometimes if you just ask people questions, you might get the answers what you're looking for, or sometimes you get answers you're not looking for. So I always advocate to do that first and foremost. Um, Brian said, so we conclude Skeptical did a questionnaire of someone he knew nothing about, positioned on the topic at hand. Check. That is exactly what happened. He heard me say a couple of comments on Franco's show about believing in the Bible and talking about end time prophecy. And the end time prophecy I was talking about is Mystery Babylon and what is going to be, how salvation will come, like what kind of things are going, what kind of things am I looking at, and trying to figure out things. Because I tell them, honestly, you want to know why I believe what I believe is mostly prophecy. And I don't even have to go back on well, they predicted this person and that person. It's the prophecies of what would happen at the end time. My mother, one of the books of the Bible which got drilled into my head was the book of Revelations. Now, I know a lot of Jewish people, they don't believe in the New Testament at all. So they're not going to have the same understanding and viewpoint that I have, the ones who don't believe in the New Testament. Um, so I guess that's where we will have to kind of agree to disagree on some things. But also the Old Testament, in all honesty, the New Testament, a lot of that is just um, it's rephrasing and requoting um, verses from other prophets from the Old Testament. I mean, I can even show you how. I'm trying to remember what is it. Even John 3:16. There's a precept of John 3:16 in the Old Testament, and a couple of other ones where uh, a lot of things are very they mirror and connect. I mean, for instance, actually, you know what? I got my Bible right here. I will pull something up and show you real quick if you all can see it. I'll try my best. Oh yeah, remember I was talking about the Apocrypha. I'll try to see. This is my Bible. This is a King James 1611. See that right there? That is the Apocrypha right there in the Bible, the 1611 one. And as you can see, different books. Esdras is, in fact, there's certain things which you cannot learn. There's like certain high holy days and holidays you can't learn without the Apocrypha. Literally, you want to learn about where Hanukkah comes from and about the Maccabees. It's literally right here in the Apocrypha, in this part. In fact, it is one of the last of the Apocrypha. It's one of the last books. Let's see if you can see that. You see this Maccabees? It's in the book of Maccabees. That's where you will find it. But I wanted to skip to Revelations so I can show you this. This right here is Revelations 22 and 18. Now, I'm not going to read the verse, but what I wanted to show you is, you see how that part that's highlighted? Let me get a little closer. You see that Deuteronomy right there? What that's telling you to do is, all the way here at the very end of the book, it's telling you to go all the way back here. It's telling you literally go all the way back here to that part of the Bible. So when people say, oh, well, the Old Testament's done. No, it's a free-flowing book. It all connects. Like I heard this one rabbi actually make the comment of, we don't need a New Testament. The Old Testament's doing very fine. Thank you very much. And I'm like, you're just a fucking idiot. You don't even know that this prophecy is connecting this prophecy to this, and all this is doing is reiterating that. Malachi, there's verses in Malachi which I could show you that mirror in Romans, and never mind. And in fact, the Geneva Bible, that's a pretty good Bible also. That is a pretty good Bible. It's actually older than the King James for those who don't know. Um, it's not a bad Bible at all. It's not bad at all. I just kind of, I guess I'm more used to the Old English phraseology. So, yeah, I'm not against the Geneva Bible at all. Um, let's see. Pope Pius XII praised Adolf Hitler after his rise and sanctified the Holocaust because the Jesuit order knew it would force migration of European Jews towards the Holy Land as Rome planned. Well, the thing about it is, I, I'm gonna get in trouble saying this, and please nobody take this offensively, but I believe that's the reason why it was called the Holocaust. For those who don't know what the Holocaust means, Holocaust literally means burnt sacrifice. So, who's sacrificing something? I don't think if Hitler is killing his enemies, how is that a sacrifice? A sacrifice is you giving up something that means something to you. So, what I suppose that there was coordination with Ashkenazi people who sold who sold some of their people down the drain to be massacred to use this as an excuse. Now I know that might sound crazy. I know some people are not going to believe me. That's the reason why I say this is just my theory. This is what I've come to believe from some of the evidence I've saw that people that were really high up had no problem with letting some of their own people be murdered and butchered in various different ways. I'm not going into the validity of what I believe exactly happened in each camp or not, because I've literally heard reports in some camps where it was almost like summer camp, and other camps where it was horrible. It was hell. So I like to try to bring that other side to it because I remember in school being I remember in school all the different movies about the Holocaust that we watched. I until I saw some of these documentaries which I've seen and some of these court trials which I've seen, I would have never believed any of this stuff that I'm seeing. I mean, some of this stuff is like, wait a minute, you're telling me that they had art class and they had theaters, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? And so, um, when I know that a narrative has been pushed so hard, and you don't hear the other side of it makes me skeptical now of a lot of things that went on. So I'm not one of the people that believe that nobody was murdered or nobody was attacked during the Holocaust. I definitely believe that they were. Do I believe the gas chambers? Not not how it's described. No. Do I believe that some possibly died in some forms of gas chambers? That's possible, yes, but not the way it's told. That just doesn't stack up. And for those who want to question me on that, you're literally talking to in the military. My job was weapons, so this is something which I know about. I understand how gas and different things can be used. I understand all the different safety measures and stuff that you would have to do. Because also in the military, I was also a QASO, a quality assurance safety officer. So that's one of the highest standards you can get to as a safety officer in the military. A lot of times you literally can just transfer straight into OSHA from there. So I come from somebody who has some experience and knowledge about some of this stuff. Um, After World War II was over, it was if for the firm and steady pressure of Rome upon especially Catholic Latin American countries to vote yes at the UN ratification, there wouldn't have been enough votes. I mean, yeah, that history gets really really interesting if you're not afraid to you know take some of the dirty looks of you just trying to do research. Sometimes I get a lot of dirty looks by the research I'm doing, but tell me, it's just research. It doesn't shape me into thinking like those people. I can study the Klan. That's not going to make me a Klan member tomorrow, well, or ever. But that's my point. You can study people, and it doesn't mean that that has to rub off on you. Well, I don't think that Josh's biggest problem is with you questioning. I just think that sometimes your questions come across a little brash, a little rough, and you got to remember this is a touchy subject. This is definitely a touchy subject, and if let's put it this way, Brian, I know you're of Hispanic descent or Latino. Um, let's say that you were told your whole life that your ancestors were massacred when the conquistadors came over. And then somebody told you, you know, actually, I found out that no, they weren't. And that was all nonsense. And this is the first time you've ever heard of that. You would have a little bit of an issue dealing with a person coming at you that way, too. So we got to always keep that in mind. Um, I doubt, let's see, put it up here. Brian says, I doubt most of the Holocaust because of evidence produced, but I have never seen a counter to eugenics. I should, yeah, I could go so deep into that topic, eugenics. Man, I can go so deep into that, especially a lot of the eugenics stuff that happened in Europe. A lot of those practices were brought over here, whereas they were used on Jewish people. They were used on a lot of the what are they called? I know I'll probably get ate up by somebody for saying gypsies, but I can't remember a better term. But I know a lot of them were. So there was a lot of eugenics going on, especially with the Germans, because they wanted to believe in this perfect Aryan race or whatever. So um, with that thinking, you know, they start slicing themselves into such small blocks on who they felt was pure blood and all that stuff. So if they did that to people who have a slight bit of difference, meaning, you know, they, even Ashkenazis do, even Ashkenazis do have Middle Eastern blood. Now, are we certain which group it is necessarily? We don't know for everybody. But what I'm saying is they do have that. So it gives them that, even if it's a little, even if it's a small percentage, maybe it's darker hair, darker eyes, and they all have blonde hair, or for the most part, blonder hair. Or they're a little paler in their skin tone, and maybe the Jewish people might have a little bit of maybe a little bit of a tan tone. Those, if they did that with people that didn't have a great deal of change, imagine what they did to Asians and you know and blacks. Also, a lot of people forget about the colonial troops that were massacred in a lot of places throughout World War II, whether it was Germany, France, you know, many of those countries where the racism is not talked about, and so it wasn't only like, you know, black people from America who were part of the military who faced that racism. It was also, you know, other militaries and other nations that came out of North Africa, came out of Asia and other places who faced it also. So it gets, history gets so messy when you really get deep into it. Evolution is, yeah. Yeah, Choosy, I want to have you on one of these times. You got some interesting topics that you're talking about. So I really love to have a conversation with you about some of this stuff. Um, Ryan says, and I think eugenics is wrong. To be clear, Germans did do wrong, just not about all those wrongs. And that's what I'm saying. The Germans did a lot of stuff wrong. I don't want anybody to misunderstand that. And what I'm saying is, don't get me wrong, they still did kill plenty of Jews. Whatever the method, they still killed them. They still killed a good amount. I'm not going to try to pencil down a number. I'm not going there. But I have no doubt that they definitely did kill Jews and other groups of people. And those same descendants of those people passed on. Well, I don't know if it's descendants, but well, you look into like Operation Paperclip and stuff like that. I believe that that's where some of these ideas got passed over. Some of the people who worked with the Germans to sell out their own people, I felt, pushed that eugenics narrative, which got pushed on to the black and brown communities in America. So I definitely believe that eugenics from the Germans didn't necessarily end there. Some of them were literal Nazis that I believe that brought it over. Some of them just um, liked the policies of the Nazis. I definitely believe that it does come from there. It's the same old shit. They turned down the whole world into a concentration camp, and they're turning the whole atmosphere into a gas chamber, literally. I mean, I believe that we live in a closed atmosphere, so all of this pollution that we're putting into the air, whether it's from planes, trains, people want to say it's cow farts, whatever it is, we are we are screwing up this atmosphere, and everybody, no matter Jew, Gentile, pirate, whatever you are, we all are suffering from this. And that's the reason why I lean so hard on the Great Reset and things like that on my other channels, because I believe the elites, their goal is to minimize the population. And I don't really think that they're very picky exactly which groups diminish the most. I think that they just kind of want to drop the population. They don't want to change their living behaviors to, preserve things. They just want to kill off everybody, and then they can still continue to live high on the hog as they're living now. Let's see. Marcus for king of Israel after the Carnation Revolution. Interesting. Wasn't it the Holocaust? Wasn't the Holocaust way before? What do you? Well, Holocaust was in the 1940s. Now, there was another event that was going on, which I consider the Holocaust that nobody ever talks about. If you go into the Congo, under Leopold III, Leopold III, I want to say enslaved and massacred over 10 million Congolese roughly during the same time as the Holocaust, and it was never even heard about. And there's so many more things in history that I could bring up that are not heard about, which a lot of these things I probably will bring up if I have the time to kind of put it together. I'm kind of low tech on the way I put my videos together, but apparently you guys still appreciate all the hard work I put in, even when I still have my little screw ups here and there. So I do definitely appreciate it. Jesuit think tanks where concentration camps are born. I completely agree. Ow, that hurt, didn't it? Um, yes, depopulationists are fools. They should lead by example. Do they need help finding it? I wish they would. See, this is my thinking, Brian. My thinking is if these assholes weren't so selfish and want to destroy and ruin everything, they could actually give all of us platforms large enough that we can actually reach out and put our brains together and come up with better solutions. I mean, we already know that hemp, you can build things out of hemp, and hemp can actually absorb CO2. There's so many different ways that we could do this stuff, but the elites feel like they have to control every little thing, and just they see us as just globs. Oh, this is just a couple 100 million there, a billion here, a billion there, and to them, there may be 100,000 in their circle are really the only people they give a fuck about. So, wars, whatever, I don't put any of that past them because their overall goal is reduce this fucking population. If we got to put bullshit in their foods where, okay, little plastic parts are coming off and you might be getting a little cancer, so be it. If this is happening and now it's leaving you more open to lymphoma, then so be it. If you're gonna fucking eat paint and die, so be it. If we can overproduce more drugs to you and you just take whatever the fucking doctor gives you and it fucks up your kidney and liver, so be it. I believe that their goal is reduce the population. That's the reason why they have no problem droning and bombing the shit out of everybody all over the place. Let's see. I know people get mad at me talking about it. I just think there's more to it. I just don't understand why we can't question it. It's just you just gotta remember that you're talking about sensitive shit, and you gotta always keep that in mind when you're dealing with people. It is really easy to piss people off when you get into these subjects, and so you always got to keep their their feelings somewhat intact when you're thinking about these things. Yeah, I guess I'm almost 2:15. Yeah, yeah. Brian said great chat. He has to go. So glad to have you in here, Dubster Brian. Um, you do. I do check out a lot of your stuff that you put in the Discord. Good information. If people have the patience to actually give it a chance and listen instead of just getting emotional. I know it's easy. It's easier said than done to say don't get emotional about shit. But hey, we all do it. None of us for the most part are perfect. At least I'm not. That's my goal to be, but I'm not. I know I'm not. See, Rome is pencil thief. All right, Choosy, you gotta DM me. You gotta DM me. We need to talk. But I guess on that note, I think I explained out kind of some of the things I hope that would have come out in the debate. Um, I hope that he would have been able to really probe what I believe, and then he could attack it all he wants. But at least let the understanding of what my belief is be framed in a light which I feel truly reflects what I believe versus presuppositions. So, with that said, I'm so glad and thank you all for tuning in. I have some videos coming on this channel. I have one on the what is it? I think I'm gonna be doing a little bit deeper dive into the Hittites and what is it? The Amanaya, Yamanite. I'm twisting up my head. I can't remember the names, but I have a video coming on them. I'm going to be doing some work on the Etruscans, the Celts, a couple of things like that. So that way we can establish out completely a lot of the major nations, which I feel like take the leading role throughout the Bible. We'll talk about the different nations. Just remember, don't take this as I'm putting you as this nation or that nation. I don't know who you are biblically. I'm just going with phenotypes overall. Let's say a 75%. You could be in that 25 percentile, which is actually an Israelite. So I always try to keep that in mind and look at everybody in that manner. Let's see. I'll read this last one before I got out of here. LOL, Marcus. I think I've already told you everything I know. I would have to do a telephone call in. It's not how many shows I do, how many other people are calling for Carnation Revolution also. Or just have me on your show, fire away at some questions because a lot of this stuff I've done so much studying that I have to try to balance being a little overwhelming and throwing too much information at people. Yeah, have me on. I would be happy to come on your channel anytime. And just like any of you guys, anybody hits me up and asks me to come on their channel, I will. If you want to see me on one of your other commentator friends or one of our commentator friends, prod him, say, hey, why don't you guys get him on there? We'd like to hear more from him. And I'll do my damnness to try to meet with them and hop on. So that said, you all have a great rest of the day. Hopefully you chill, relax, have something nice and cold to drink. And if you blazing and that's your thing, blaze them if you got them. You all have a good one. Thank you.